scams, cons, frauds, and swindles. People have been pulling the wool over the eyes of suckers since the invention of suckers and wool, okay? And today, we're gonna talk about the greatest eye-wool sucker puller that ever lived. A con man of such epic proportions that he hustled Al Capone himself and got away with it, made millions off of an infinite money hack, and even sold the Eiffel Tower not once, but twice. He was a con man so smooth, so slippery, and so full of godlike riz that the Secret Service themselves called him, quote, as elusive as a puff of cigarette smoke and as charming as a young girl's dream. Today, you're gonna learn about the absolute goat of the grift, the baron of bamboozlement, the count of the con himself, Mr. Victor Lustig, eventually known as the most dangerous con man in America. And today, we're as vulnerable to being scammed and spammed as ever. With the invention of the internet, there's no longer a need for a smooth-talking confidence man to talk you into buying a 1,000-foot hunk of metal. And that's why I use today's sponsor, Aura. Look, one of the most annoying things in my entire life is the sheer volume of spam text that I get every single day. It is, like, this isn't just for the ad or anything, this is my real life here, folks. It's a problem. Like, at this point, I get a vibration down there, I don't even check it anymore. I just assume that it's some robot trying to tell me I need to pay some non-existent medical debt or trying to educate me on why doctors hate him for this one weird trick. But today's sponsor, Aura, they are constantly on the lookout for my online security, alerting me if they find that my phone number or any other sensitive information has been compromised, giving me fast fraud alerts if anyone tries to use that data to access my credit or bank accounts, and finally, allowing me to clear out my damn text inbox. Recently, massive phone service giant AT&T admitted that they had a data breach that revealed the text and call records of nearly all of their customers, and even the people that those customers contacted themselves. So even if you don't personally use AT&T, if you've ever texted or called someone who does, now your number has been exposed. Just like that. Plus, it hasn't even been a few months since they came out and admitted that more than 70 million of their users' social security numbers ended up on the dark web for cretins to steal your identity with. My girlfriend had her identity stolen a few years back, and trust me, I would not wish that fate on my worst enemy, bro. It stays with you forever. So don't let that be you, and use Aura. Aura offers things like transaction monitoring, a VPN, antivirus software, a password manager, parental controls, and identity theft insurance. It really is a one-stop shop for your online security. Why combine a bunch of separate, expensive subscriptions for all this stuff when Aura can do it all at quite an affordable price? Aura even offers an AI-powered call assistant that will pick up unknown calls for me and screen them for spam or scams, and only send you that real stuff so that you never miss appointments, deliveries, or emergencies. And they keep that text inbox safe too, by filtering out known spam numbers and scanning all those sketchy links that you get in there for phishing threats. Personally, I'm just not leaving myself or my family vulnerable to all the bad stuff that comes from these all too common data breaches. And if you don't want to deal with all that annoying bad stuff either, go to aura.com/necessary information or go click that link in the description and try your first 2 weeks absolutely free. Seriously, click it. Go down there right now. Why wouldn't you click it? A huge thanks to Aura for sponsoring this video, and let's get into it.
Hey, kid, over here. Yeah, you, over there in the cringe-ass anime hoodie. Hey, look, listen, kid, I got an investment opportunity for you right here, right up in here.
Hey, whoa, no, hey, get back over here.
Hey, look, you want to buy some Beanie Babies? Huh? You know, some Pogs? How about some regular babies? I got the white ones. No? Look, for you, I got a real good deal on the Eiffel Tower. Okay, today only, it's half off. Why are you looking at me like that? What's so weird about that? A national French landmark right here. Doesn't even smell like them either. I hosed it down real good, just for you. This thing had like 140 years of old cigarette smoking wine stains caked in, and now it's fresh as a whistle. You want it? Yeah, you want to buy it? You want to buy the Eiffel Tower? All right, show me the money. Yeah, give me that money, okay. All right, okay, kid, here you go. All right, listen, don't you can tell anybody about this, okay? Don't tell anyone. I know where you live. Now get out of here, okay? Get the hell out of here, kid. Go now. Shoot, vamoose. Hey bro, you wanna buy the Eiffel Tower?
Before Victor Lustig became the most powerful grifter the world had ever seen, he was simply a humble Austrian baby. Or at least, you know, that's what he wants you to think. Because, I mean, really, who knows? This guy could have scammed his own mother into giving birth to him, for God's sake. He was probably pulling grifts on the other sperm in his daddy's ballsack. All right, that's how powerful this dude was. You see, the most likely origin of this comically confident criminal mastermind begins in 1890 with him shooting out the womb somewhere in Austria-Hungary, today a part of the Czech Republic. But in reality, that republic is not the only part of this origin story that needs checking. This is because literally every single fact about this man before like 1920 is more sus than a priest at a JoJo Siwa concert. Well, actually, I guess that's not the best example now. She's doing a bit of a different thing. It would still be weird to see a priest there. It's fishier than Bikini Bottom, let's say. Everything about this dude needs to be taken with a grain of salt the size of Shaquille O'Neal's head. All right, and that is because Victor Lustig, if that's even his real name, lied more than a career politician running for American political office.
Mom, I'm sorry.
Okay, this guy was one sussy-ass scam artist.
Walt, you sussy baka.
Throughout his career, Count Victor Lustig used at least 47 different names and aliases and had almost as many fake passports. Hell, even the name on his Alcatraz-issued death certificate read Robert V. Miller. So we don't even know for sure which one of those was his real name. The dude could have been named Peter. But despite all this murkiness, I'll still do my best to give you guys the straight dope on the origins of this original gangster. Victor, despite later claiming that he came from a long line of European nobility, hence the Count nickname, was almost certainly in reality a straight-up street urchin.
Riff-raff, street rat.
Coming from levels of poverty that would disgust even the lowliest middle-aged peasant, let alone Tom Segura.
Look at these fucking poor pieces of shit.
Victor's parents apparently struggled to scrounge up enough money to put food in Vic's belly or clothes on his back. And when they decided to split up when Victor was 8 years old, divorce. They also decided to split up with Victor. Yeah, they really just said, it, do-over. If we ain't boinking, I'm certainly not raising this thing. And they promptly forked Victor over to live with some distant family. And apparently this turn of events was somehow even worse than the naked, hungry, dirt-encrusted existence that Victor previously endured with his actual parents, as little old Vic decided that he'd be better off on his own and ran away from these relatives at the ripe old age of 12, dropping out of school and deciding to pursue the lucrative career of petty street crime.
I'm only trying to riz your wallet.
For the next several years, Victor traveled all throughout the stinky cities of Europe as a child vagrant, relying on begging, pickpocketing, and the noble sport of dumpster diving just to stay alive. And it was during one of these frequent trips to the trash bin when Victor was 13 years old that he witnessed something that would change his outlook on life forever. You see, Victor was out in a dark, dank alleyway in Budapest, the capital of Hungary, and it seems that he was pretty hungry himself, as he was chomping away on a meat and trash sandwich when he witnessed something even more disturbing than, well, eating a meat and trash sandwich. Across the street, sitting on the terrace of a luxury hotel, was a young French couple. That's not the disturbing part yet, although I can see why you might think that. You see, while this young couple were making googly eyes at each other and somehow French kissing with a mouthful of wine and a cigarette still on their lips, again, not the disturbing part yet, they seemed completely oblivious to the fact that their generous, underpaid waiter was bringing them course after course of delicious, mouth-watering, not at all garbage juice encrusted food. There were chocolate croissants, steak tartare, beef bolognese, or however you pronounce that. Victor was witnessing some real ratatouille shit going down over there, and the thing that was really grinding his gears, really irking his gurks, really pissing the shit out of him about all this, was that this couple, they weren't eating a bite of it. Oh yes, they were too busy a fiddlin' and a diddlin' to even touch this luscious meal that Victor could only dream of consuming. And they quickly left it all to go cold out on the table as they rushed into their hotel room, presumably to surrender to each other all night long, as the French are wont to do.
On behalf of the country of France, we surrender.
Now, if I was this kid, this Victor fellow, this dirty, freshly teenaged bohemian vagrant, I'd actually be kind of stoked about this turn of events, I think, because, you know, all that food, it's coming right into my dumpster diving mouth, right? That shit is on the trash chute express train directly into my starving, refuse-filled belly, right? I mean, choo-choo. Woo-hoo. But Victor, he was absolutely tilted about this, okay? Just in a Tyler 1 level rage-filled freakout. After witnessing this event, something in the young Lustig broke that day. Conscience, I suppose. The little guy with the halo over his shoulder decided to take a quick break for the next 50 years or so.
It's okay to lie to women. They're not people like us.
As Victor decided that if some wealthy f***s out there get to live like that while he was stuck in this alleyway in tattered old rags eating literal garbage, that he would never, ever in a million years, never again, feel bad about ripping off someone more fortunate than himself. And ripping off the more fortunate is exactly what Victor did, as he quickly passed through all of the Pokemon evolutions of street crime, going from panhandler to pickpocket to petty thief, and eventually all the way up to straight-up burglary. But eventually, Victor realized, why take from those who have it all when they're stupid enough to just f***ing give it to you? Why risk actually stealing from these rich assholes when their minds have become so dulled from a life of luxury and affluenza that you could simply morph into the Rizzler himself and get them to hand over their hard, unearned money right into the palm of your hand? And with this new revelation, Victor picked up a deck of cards and got to work. Lustig quickly perfected all of the low-down, dirty dealings of a card-based street hustler. Palming, slipping, dealing from the bottom, the old 52 switcheroo, uppities, screwballs, the Tennessee toe tickler, you name it. Okay, I did make up one or two of those, but he did literally master every single cheat in the book.
I've got 6 aces.
And by the time he turned 18, Victor could make a deck of cards, quote, do anything but talk. And if he had just had a few more years of work, he might have even mastered that too. But alas, soon after adulthood, Victor started getting picked up by the cops for cheating at poker, his endless street hustles, and various other criminal no-nos, getting thrown in for short stints in the slammer all across the great homoerotic continent of Europe, getting locked up in Budapest, Vienna, Zurich, and Prague, just to name a few. By the time he was 19, Victor decided that he needed to get out of Dodge and head across the Atlantic to the land of opportunity, that shining city on a hill full of cash, cheeseburger, and all the semi-automatic weaponry a young man could dream of, Canada. Wait, no, that does not sound right. A little too far north. America. Yes, America. At that time, we still had more social mobility than our neighbors to the north. No idea how those hosers managed to pass us somehow.
You know what?
But it really does say something about the state of this country, that a frigid wasteland full of poutine igloos and Drake managed to steal the American dream from the cold, dead capitalist husk of these now somewhat United States. In any case, the current fall of our American empire into decadent decline notwithstanding, Lustig either managed to scrape together enough card trick money to hop on a steamship, stowed away on one, forged a ticket, rizzed up a dock worker with his legendary charm, or used any number of other con-man-style tactics to eventually find his way onto the first-class deck of a luxury steamship heading straight for New York City. And while on this steam-powered pleasure cruise, Victor realized something. This boat, this steam-powered boat, was f***ing chocked full of wealthy, drunk-ass piggy banks just ripe for the rusing. A bit before he made this wallet-fattening realization, however, he did run into a bit of a face-off, let's say, either during some time spent gambling in Paris or on this very same steamship, where after making hot, sweet love to a random, presumably French broad, said broad's incredibly jacked boyfriend caught him in the act and went all South London on his ass, whipping out a blade and slicing a 2.5-inch gash right into Victor's left cheek. This little beauty mark of his eventually led to him being simply known as the Scarred by American detectives that were hunting him down, town, as he had so many aliases and fake names that this dope-ass moniker was somehow the least confusing way of referring to the con man in official government discourse. Anyway, one con that Victor pulled time and time again on these stupid steamship sailing suckers was to pose as a producer who needed funding for his next surefire hit Broadway production.
Running for your life from Shia LaBeouf, he's brandishing a knife, it's Shia LaBeouf.
Promising to 10x these wealthy idiots' money if he could just secure a little venture capital. And these affluent assholes, very accustomed to just sitting around turning their money into more money through lucrative investment schemes like this one, thought it a splendid idea to immediately hand a random stranger thousands of dollars in cash for a fake Broadway show with no legal contract or any way of legally securing a return on their investment. And after the ship reached port, Victor would simply turn heel and run for the hills, pockets overflowing with the cash of these loaded theater enthusiasts. Then Victor would simply board a ship in New York, sail it back the other way on the Atlantic into Europe, con some more foolish fancy with the same Broadway scam, get off in Europe, hop on a ship to New York, and just repeat this process over and over again like some kind of early 20th century pirate. And Victor might have just continued living this sweet life of Zack and Cody, scamming across the high seas forever if it wasn't for this little insignificant historical event known as World War I. You see, the Great War? Not exactly so great for the pleasure cruise industry, as there was a very real possibility that their ships would get World War I, sailing directly into a naval battle or being mistaken for an enemy ship and getting torpedoed by the Ocean Gate tier death traps that were that era's submarines. Now, not a whole lot is known of Victor's whereabouts during the war, but it most likely involved a lot more scams and griftery, as by 1919, Victor was absolutely loaded, so much so that he was now ready to undergo his most impressive Pokemon evolution yet, coming out of his con man cocoon fully transformed into Count Victor Lustig, or Count Robert V. Miller, or Count Chocula. He used a lot of names. Okay, but whatever alias he felt like using at the time, he threw Count in front of it. Lustig began wearing the finest clothes that money could buy, took up the airs of a wealthy old money aristocrat, and claimed to everyone that he was a well-educated member of a long line of European nobility hiding in America as a political refugee. But how exactly did a poor-ass, dirty-ass Aladdin-tier plebeian that dropped out of school at the age of 12 and had a giant, sketchy, loan shark-esque scar across his face, managed to pull off a vibe change of such epic proportions and actually convince real, genuine wealthy people that he was one of them? I mean, not even only one of them, actually, but like fucking better than them, that he was a literal count hailing from the most noble of blue-tinted blood. Well, Victor didn't just dive scarred-ass face first into this lie, all right? He had actually spent years training for this new character of his, using all of his time in Europe's various prison systems, reading up on the finer things, like pomp and circumstance and which one of them is the salad fork, basically getting himself as educated as possible with the aristocratic customs of Europe and becoming fluent in 5 separate languages to really sell this impeccably refined persona. Plus, let's not forget, this guy is in America here, okay? He could probably just put on a monocle and speak some broken French, and at least 99% of the population would just be like, oh, golly gee willikers, even that ain't the fanciest thing I ever did seen. Yuck. Yep, that is one surefire hunk of high-class European ass right there. Why don't you sit on down right here on my solid gold oil drill and tell me about how you can take some of my money, Mr. Fancy Pants Count Dooku Man. Yeehaw and whatnot. So, along with his newfound countship, Lustig decided to permanently disown his sea legs and engage in a life of landlubbery in the Big Apple, New York, and quickly married someone named Roberta. Yes, a woman named Roberta. That small little letter certainly does make a big difference there, doesn't it? After settling down and starting a family, Victor soon took to spoiling them rotten with his newfound Count Dooku money, along with another, more secret family that he apparently had at the same time. and like just a fuck ton of other mistresses and shit. This guy really got around, that's what I'm trying to say. Soon after stealing the Count title from Mr. Dracula, the 1920s came a-roaring into the great US of A, and along with it, this neat little thing known as Prohibition, where America basically acted like a couple of conservative parents when their teenage metalhead son raids their liquor cabinet. And grounded the American public from booze for roughly 13 years. The Count then took advantage of this wonderful opportunity to briefly dip a toe into the metaphorical hot tub of forgery, fabricating fake government labels for bootleggers to show the cops when they got busted that basically said, "Hey, coppers, these guys? Don't worry about these guys, okay? Alcohol is illegal, sure, but not for these guys, okay? Cause Uncle Sam said so, okay? So just like go stop a murder, or do some hate crimes, or whatever cops did in the 20s, and just leave these fellas alone, all right?" See, alcohol was illegal during Prohibition. Mostly, because there were a few different loopholes that you could use to still get absolutely sloshed out of your mind with some flappers and a speakeasy or two, if that's what you decided you wanted to do. First of all, it wasn't actually illegal to consume alcohol at the time. It was just illegal to manufacture, sell, or transport alcohol. So, if you just got caught being drunk, it's kind of like some cop finding you high in the street, with no actual substances on you except for a bunch of shit, human feces in your pants. Okay, it's sketchy, and they might give you a good little spanking for it or something, but legally speaking, you were probably fine. Second, there were three main loopholes to get around the whole sale and transport thing. One, you could still procure alcohol for religious purposes. Think all of those Catholics downing red wine and cosplaying that was some old Jewish guy's blood. Doctors could also still prescribe alcohol for medicinal reasons, which they did a lot. Think medical marijuana in California before they legalized it. You know, you just went to the doctor being like, "Hey, you know, my elbow hurts, man. I got like anxiety about this whole elbow situation going on here." And he'd be like,
"Take 25 of these a day for the rest of your life."
And the third and largest loophole was that any alcohol that already existed before January 17th, 1920 was still completely and totally legal to transport, sell, and consume. But rich people and speakeasies across the country pretty much bought out the entire supply by like January 18th, 1920, so they could hoard it all for themselves. But if you could just take some bootleg whiskey, forge a label that says that shit was made in 1789, bing bang boom, you were golden, pony boy. So basically, Victor was spending his time either faking making booze old, medicinal, or blessed by the Lord himself. But he'd pretty soon thought to himself that if he could counterfeit this shit and sell it to mobsters for cash, why not just cut out the middleman and counterfeit the cash for cash? But then he thought a little bit more to himself and said, "Hey, that actually sounds really fucking hard, actually. That sounds like it would take a lot of work. If only someone could, like, invent a box, let's say, that just magically produced money for me, so I didn't have to make it myself. That'd be tight as fuck." And then he thought, wow, what I wouldn't give, you know, currency-wise, to have such a magical money box. I'd probably give someone, I don't know, like $1 million or a couple of kidneys for one of those things. And that is precisely when the light bulb moment struck.
I got it!
You see, Victor knew that he couldn't make convincing fake money, or a magical fake money box, which he could use to print said fake money, but he did know that he was a good enough liar to make people think that he could do both of those things. So basically, he could print money without even printing the money. And this is exactly how the so-called Rumanian Box Scheme was born.
What's in the box?
Basically, the scam went like this. Step 1, get a fancy box. Step 2, tell someone they can print money with said fancy box. Step 3, profit. Now, You need more details than that? Okay, sure, why not? Sometime in the early 20s, Victor went to a New York City carpenter and made a bit of a strange request. You see, Victor wanted this carpenter to make dozens of brass-trimmed mahogany boxes about 2.5 feet long with 2 separate money-shaped slots in the front and filled to the brim with dials and levers. Now, when the carpenter asked what he should make all of the dial and lever doohickeys, do, Victor was just like, f***ing nothing. And the carpenter was like, oh, okay, well, but why? And then Victor was like, shh, little baby, shh, quiet down, my little wood baby, shh. And he put his little finger on his lips and he pulled out a bunch of cash and he put it on his lips and he said shh, and he started shoving it down his throat and his mouth and stuff, So after the carpenter spit out all the money, he was just like, okay, Jesus Christ, all right, bet, I'll do it. Just please never do that ever again, God. And then he made all of Victor's fake magic money boxes for him. So basically, the way that these boxes worked was to slip a bill into the top slot and some special printer paper into the bottom, pull some of the levers and dials in a literally just random order that Victor would make up on the spot, since again they did absolutely jack shit nothing, just there for show. Victor then claimed that the machine would use radium, an extremely radioactive yet official sounding substance to people at the time of Marie Curie fame, to copy the bill radioactively somehow, and then 6 hours later it would spit out a completely identical bill. Rinse and repeat, and soon you're rolling in the money. Now, you may be thinking, okay, 6 hours, that's kind of a long time to just be printing $100 bills. Like, sure, you could make like $400 a day that way, but man, I mean, there's mid-tier fitness YouTubers that make more than that. Alex Jones probably makes more than that.
I'm kind of retarded.
We're trying to get to like Mr. Beast tier money.
I just bought this train!
Trying to be living like Jimmy over here, But remember, this isn't $400 of our ridiculously bullshit modern American currency. The stuff that got incredibly hyperinflated after 2020. Okay, $400 back then would be like $7,000 today. Okay, so running all day, $7,000 every single day. That could make you the equivalent of 2.5 million of our bullshit modern day Monopoly money every single year. Okay, plus, just imagine if you had like 6 of these things running at the same time. I mean, you'd be rolling in Model Ts and flappers in seconds flat, brother. But there is kind of an issue here. How exactly would you go about, selling these things? I mean, you can't exactly just hop on a street corner with one of those old-timey bullhorn things being like, ladies and gentlemen, step right up for the incredibly illegal magical money machine. So in order to move this weight, this wooden box weight, Victor was going to need to be a bit more discreet, a bit more cerebral, and he was going to need help from a little fellow by the name of Dapper Dan Collins.
I'm Dirty Dan.
I'm Dirty Dan.
Dapper Dan, besides sharing the same name as that goopy-ass pomade that George Clooney was obsessed with in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
I'm a Dapper Dan man.
Was also quite the interesting character in his own right, with the New York Times describing him as a, quote, former circus lion tamer and death-defying bicycle rider. So here's how this would go, right? Victor would mosey on down to the bank and pull out some real, genuine, unaltered American currency, usually $100 bills, as they are the most baller to see spitting out of a magical money-making machine. Mr. Benjamin is certainly my favorite president. Next, Victor would take these fresh, crispy hundos and do a little alakazam, forgery to them, putting his whiskey-labeled date changery expertise into effect by scrubbing off the last digit of the serial number on these fresh bills and replacing it with the same number as another bill of his choice, making the 2 bills completely identical. I know that this sounds confusing as f***. I'm confused. I wrote it, that part of the script, and I'm so confused right now. Basically, you got $100 bill, right? Serial number 42069, right? Same as my bank pin. And, you know, he got them from the bank at the same time, all the bills. So the previous 9 bills would end in 42068, 67, 66. You get the gist. So he just replaced the last number with a 9 so that they all said 42069. So they all were identical bills. I don't know why I'm explaining this so much. You're probably smarter than I am, right? Identical bills. He made identical. I could have just said he made identical bills. Now, personally, I kind of think that this is a bit of overkill because he did this to like really sell that his machine perfectly copied money that you put into it. But like, dude, I mean, can't you just say that there's like some mechanism that changes the serial number for you? You know, like, isn't that like better? So you don't have to bring 2 identical bills to the bank and have them be like, you know, this is f***ing fake. Clearly, that can't happen. The Mint doesn't just make identical serial number bills. You goddamn schlemiel, and then they lock you up and they throw you in jail. You know, like, I don't know. I don't know why he went through all the effort of doing this in the first place. I mean, you're trying to sell a magical money printing machine. I don't think the thing that's going to make a guy not believe you is the fact that the goddamn serial number on the bills is different, you know? But, I mean, hey, what do I know? I'm not the criminal con man genius over here, okay? Okay, Victor is. I'm just a guy who makes dick jokes and rambles on the internet, all right? So he probably knows something I don't. Anyway, after making about 6 to 9 of these identical bills, Victor would pack the machine full of them and head to a casino, or a racetrack, or a brothel, but anywhere where there might be some desperate fellas with a low moral standing who are full of booze and debt and in need of a very quick buck. But again, he wouldn't just, you know, hop up on the blackjack table being like, come one, come all, print some Benjamins, boys. Pay me to pay you. Give a man $100, he drinks for a day. Teach a man to $100, he dies of alcoholism. You know, can't do that. Can't do that in an establishment. Now, Victor, he was much more crafty about this whole thing. He'd go and get his friend Dapper Dan to run around pulling his whole circus bullshit shtick, just spitting fire on lions and doing whatever death-defying bicycle riding is. And in the meantime, he'd go around casually stealing people's wallets.
Yo, stop squirming. Stop squirming here. Mike!
So, you know, wallets, money, woohoo, you're done, right? No. You see, he'd come back to the schmucks whose wallets that he had personally just put the sticky finger fondle on and taken off of them, and then he would actually, like, return them to the fellows from which they were stolen, saying that he had just randomly found it on the ground. So now the stolen wallet guy's all happy, maybe buys him a drink, you know, they're laughing, they're vibing, you know, it's the perfect opportunity to strike. Victor would then use some clever social engineering to get these schmucks to buy his magical box, similar to a lady of the night. First, he'd casually bring up the box, but then immediately act like he was not supposed to do that, like it was a mistake, you know, something that really should not have been said publicly, like when you accidentally tell your hot cousin that you're gay at Thanksgiving, you know. I shouldn't have brought that up. You don't want to know about that, guys. That's really not important at all. See? Now you desperately want to know all the details about how Carl gave me the old under-the-table rub and tug till I ruined the stuffing. This stuff really works, folks. It's truly very effective, but you don't want to hear about that. I really shouldn't have brought it up. So after accidentally spilling the beans on his magical money box...
It's the official Malcolm Beans!
Malcolm Beans, Malcolm Beans.
Oh my god, yes!
Victor would never offer to talk about it more or show it off. He'd always use top-tier gaslighting maneuvers to make the mark think that it was actually their idea in the first place to go and see the machine. You see, Victor was the best con man. End of sentence. He was the best con man in the world of all time. And in order to get there, you gotta learn a trick or two about, you know, convincing someone to give you all of their money. Victor even selflessly laid out how you too can be an expert money-fueled male manipulator, Andrew Tate style, with his so-called 10 rules for con men, which I will now totally interrupt the flow of my video to read to you in its entirety because I'm a fucking professional, goddammit. Lustig's 10 commandments of the con.
Rule number 1.
Be a patient listener. It is this, not fast talking, that gets a con man his coups.
Rule number 2.
Never look bored. Number 3, wait for the other person to reveal any political opinions, then agree with them. Number 4, let the other person reveal religious views, then have the same ones. Number 5, hint at sex talk, but don't follow it up unless the other person shows a strong interest. Number 6, never discuss illness unless some special concern is shown. Number 7, never pry into a person's personal circumstances. They'll tell you all of it eventually anyway. Number 8, never boast. Just let your importance be quietly obvious. Number 9, never be untidy. And number 10, never get drunk. My favorite one there is just let your importance be quietly obvious. That is some alpha shit right there. That is some pickup artist shit right there. You know, that's like Dan Bilzerian talking points. Anyway, after Victor sat there, clean, patient, and sober, agreeing with everything while hinting at sex talk and listening harder than a SETI radio telescope while making his importance quietly obvious, he and the Mark would then naturally and then move on to the next stage. Just kidding on that last part, unless he was trying to scam a woman, in which case that actually was the next stage, but I digress. Either way, whether Victor actually penetrated the Mark's body or not, he certainly penetrated their brain, well enough to get them to basically beg him to see the money machine, after which they'd both adjourn to his hotel room, or some other private space, once again presumably to bone down, and after sharing a cigarette and chugging a gallon of orange juice to rehydrate, Victor was then ready to show them the machine, which of course is what he called his dick. And then after round two, they were ready to see the money-making box. Victor would then take a crispy hundo and slip it in the top slot of the machine, throw some regular paper in the lower slot, diddle the dials and lift the levers a little bit for show, and then, as he'd already told the Mark that it would take a hefty 6 hours to copy the bill, they would both go, well, again, probably, and then head back to the casino or racetrack or whatever the hell this den of sin and pagan idiots they were currently at had to offer, giving him plenty of time to continue to schmooze up the Mark. 6 hours later, they'd both return, and there it was. 2 perfectly identical $100 bills. Now, in reality, the machine only had like 8 more times that it could do this max before it ran out of the doctored bills that Victor had slipped in there and just started shooting out printer paper after 6 hours. But to the Mark, this was just absolute undeniable proof that this machine actually somehow worked. Unless, you know, they were one of those stickler me-seeks who actually wanted proof or evidence from an outside source that this wasn't just some lowly juke, in which case Victor would then actually personally take the Mark down to a real, honest-to-God, genuine bank, slap down the newly copied bill, and have the bank teller confirm to the guy that it was actually a real dollar bill, because it was. He had just changed the serial number a little bit, you know what I'm saying? And this, usually, you know, I mean, that's some pretty convincing shit right there. I'd probably be fooled in my silly little melty brain. You know, the Mark was usually like shitting his pants at this point, and now it was time for Vic to pull out the finishing move.
Babality.
Victor took this whole making the Mark think the entire scam on themselves was their own idea thing up to 100 here, as he'd been dropping hints this entire time that he desperately needed a ton of money fast. Like, he's gonna lose like 3 or 4 kneecaps if he doesn't pay Ivan back in 12 hours fast. And this machine just wasn't gonna cut it, only printing $100 bills every 6 hours. So then the Mark, being the genius that they are, would say, hey, well, you know, what if I just buy this machine off of you right now? You need money. I need the machine. It sounds cool. Let me give you the money, you know? How much do you need? Victor would then say a number between $25,000 and $100,000. That's $400,000 to $1.6 million today. The Mark would say bet, as Victor always chose like a very clearly incredibly wealthy person that just had $1.6 million to splash around. Hand him the cash. Victor would then thank them, pass over the machine, skip town immediately, and just like that, he just sold the most expensive paper mover in the entire world. This particular scam was so successful that soon Victor had conned his way into being a literal millionaire. And that is 1920s money. Not adjusted. $1 million back then was like 15 million today, and I don't think he stopped at 1 measly million. And this whole thing was kind of the perfect crime, if you think about it, because yeah, eventually the Mark would realize about $600 to $800 later that the machine was just a bunch of bullshit after it started just spitting out blank paper instead of hundos, but by that time, Victor would probably already be on like a different continent selling more money boxes to some Frenchmen. And two, what the are you even gonna do about it, you know? Because just like selling the thing, it's not like you can go down to the police station and be like, officers, help, you gotta help me. This fucking super illegal, magical, infinite money hack counterfeiting machine I just gave some sketchy, scarred-faced European count 100 grand for stopped printing incredibly illegal counterfeit money. That's like going to the cops to say that your plug actually sold you 20 kilos of drywall. You know, no one would do anything about it except for one strong-willed, luscious lady by the name of Billy May.
Billy May's here.
I love squishy burgers.
Billy May was a particularly wealthy woman who earned her riches on her back. On the back of a $1 million prostitution racket. And when Victor pulled the magical box scheme on her, she had a bit of a different reaction than normal. Once Billy found out that the box was a total dud, instead of feeling like an idiot, cutting her losses and using it as an end table, she instead tirelessly spent her time and money for the next several weeks tracking Victor down to seek her revenge. But instead, when Billy actually did find him, Victor turned on that light skin level charm and rizzed her up so goddamn hard that she just ended up having sex with him instead. And that's not even it. She actually even went into business with the guy afterward. Yeah, the D was that good.
She wants the D from me.
The two ended up having kind of a Bonnie and Clyde situation going on, pulling scams together wherever they went.
I think next time you should bring someone else.
With Victor eventually leaving both his secret and non-secret family to spend all of his time with little old Billy May.
Billy May's here for penis heads. Think it's the tough stuff. It's that easy. It's easy. It's easy. It's easy. It's easy. It's penis heads.
My personal favorite story relating to Victor's magical money box takes place in the rootin' AK shootin' heart of Texas, where Victor, presumably being weighed down at the time by the sheer mass of his fucking ironclad ballsack, attempted to pull the magic box scam on a Texas sheriff.
Texas is real, that's for sure. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna have my penis removed.
Which almost sounds like a fucking dare or something. I mean, like, unless he didn't know that the guy was a sheriff, like he was just walking around in his Texas clothes with a hat on. Everyone kind of looks like a sheriff down there, you know, as long as you're not in Austin. I guess that in that situation, it could kind of be explained. But if you're just walking up to a dude, you know, gun on his hip, pointy badge over his nipple, holding a wooden box, being like, hey man, you want to see something cool? It sounds like Dapper Dan was laughing around the corner after betting $300K that Victor wouldn't go do that, you know? That's how I like to imagine it. So, as we've previously established, with Victor being an absolute menace who just physically cannot be stopped, he did indeed end up selling this illegal money printing machine to this sheriff, who, like everybody else, a few days later realized that it was total bullshit, and in a very rare case here, did not even have to go to the police, as he, you know, was the police and all. So the sheriff told his precinct, hey boys, some dumb is doing illegal stuff. Can't really get into the specifics right now. Haven't thought up a good lie for it yet, but I gotta head out of town for a bit to track them down. Okay, sounds good, Carl. Wait, what was that last part? I gotta track them down? No, what she said before that. Caught a guy doing illegal stuff? No, dude, in the middle of those two things. I literally have no idea what you're talking about, Rick. I think you gotta get those ears checked, buddy. Bye-bye now. Well, all right. Time to go fuck Carl's wife again. I'm sorry, what did you just say? I said I'm gonna fuck your wife, Carl. Who needs to get their ears checked now, you inbred shitbird? Anyway, Carl the sheriff then cried for a while about Doris doing this to him all over again. How could she? Yada, yada, yada. And then he tracked Victor down to Chicago, where he, yet again, put on that used car salesman-ass platinum tier Riz, and they both once again ended up making hot, sweet love. The sheriff, he was tender in a soft spot. That thing had just happened with Rick and Doris. He just needed the validation at that point. No, that just did not happen. Well, maybe it did. Who are we to say, really? But what we know for sure is whether these fellers climbed Brokeback Mountain or otherwise.
I wish I knew how to quit you.
Victor literally just convinced the cop that he wasn't operating the machine correctly, gave him his money back, and left. Yeah, Victor was just like, hey, buddy, don't blame me for you being too stupid to print f***ing money. You saw me do it easy.
It's easy.
You dumb asshole. Here's some money, though, since you're being such a big old baby about it. Hey, why don't you try going and reading a book for once in your life? God damn it. It doesn't even know how to use a magical money machine. I'm ashamed that they would let people like you serve this country. Shouldn't you be wearing a helmet? And the best part of all that is the money that he gave the sheriff back wasn't even real. It was actual fake counterfeit money this time, but we'll get into that a bit later. Kind of an integral part of the story there.
A little bit of foreshadowing for you.
Oh, that's a spider. That's a spider on my microphone. Get off. Holy shit. What a f***ed up world we're living in. For now, though, let's jump to the fine year of our Lord 1925, when Victor would attempt probably the funniest thing that I have ever heard, other than them turning him into a pickle, selling the literal Eiffel Tower twice, 2 times. He sold it twice. Yeah, that one, the one you're thinking of. Not even the one in Vegas or Paris, Texas or some shit. I'm talking the GD Eiffel Tower. So here's how it went down, right? One day, one sunny mid-1920s day, Victor was, for some ungodly, smelly reason, hanging out in Paris, France, with his good buddy from the Money Box Scheme, Dapper Dan Collins, when he decided to open one very fateful newspaper. I'd personally like to imagine that he didn't even buy this newspaper. It was just being carried along with all the BO and cheese stench and the gusty French winds and landed on his face with the correct page open and everything, like some kind of sci-fi rom-com starring Jack Black, However it ended up in Victor's possession, hilarious divine intervention or otherwise, Victor opened the paper to see a story about how the Eiffel Tower, at that point, had fallen into some serious disrepair, and it would actually be cheaper for the French government to demolish it rather than actually fix the thing. You see that big, romantic, phallic-shaped hunk of metal that white women everywhere love to take pictures of, pretending that it fits in the palm of their little hand, was constructed specifically for the 1889 World's Fair, and was literally never intended to be a permanent fixture of the French skyline in any way, with the original plan actually being to demolish the tower entirely in 1909. But by that point, 1909, the Parisian populace was like, oh, oui, I love Paris, and this giant pointy baguette is the best place to smoke my very skinny cigarette and ride my funny little bike with the very large front wheel. The tower is Paris itself. We must never tear it down. Viva la Eiffel Tower. Kind of sounded more like Miranda sings than a Frenchman. But by 1925, the time that Victor was reading this article, the French public sentiment had shifted to something more along the lines of, now that I'm thinking about it, it's kind of just a dumb f***ing tower, no? Is it kind of an eyesore? Seriously, I'm tired of looking at it. It's all rusty and old and dumb and really kind of expensive, no? Why do my tax dollars keep going to upkeep this giant pointy piece of shit instead of funding the cigarette, wine, cheese, megadome super complex? The world is a f***. This makes no sense. I am so full of ennui right now. What do French people even sound like? That sounded like a Slavic man with a speech impediment. In fact, by 1910, the French had already torn down another marvel from the World's Fair, the Gallery of Machines, which was at that time the literal largest building in the entire world. So they clearly did not have any reservations about tearing down enormous culturally significant landmarks. And this article Victor was reading was basically claiming that the tower was about to face the same fate, go the way of the dodo, as it were, that it was only a matter of time before everyone in Paris just basically bum rush the thing French Revolution style, cutting off the tower's head and making it eat cake and whatnot, right? It was basically saying they were totally, definitely going to tear it down for sure. And this little piece of information gave Victor the biggest idea that anyone has ever had. Really, the biggest con that the world has ever seen.
You son of a bitch! I'm in!
So he and Dapper Dan quickly got to work digging into every single French law regarding the Eiffel Tower. The rules, the regulations, every single little bit of minutia. They wanted to prepare for any question from anyone that might challenge the legitimacy of this operation. During this process, Victor learned that the tower, for some ungodly French reason, was exclusively managed by the French Ministry of Posts and Telegraphs.
Oh, yeah.
And I actually looked into why that was, because it seemed so strange. That's kind of weird, right? Kind of an interesting explanation for that. So I guess the guy that built the tower for the World's Fair, he only had a 20-year lease on the land that the tower was built on, right? And then he had to give it back to the French government, and that's why everyone thought it would get torn down in 1909, right? But the tower's creator really did not want his precious little pointy baby being torn down. You know, I mean, he built that shit for the same reason that any man builds a giant phallic-shaped object anywhere, as a massive compensation for his own small penis.
You think maybe he's compensating for something?
And he was not gonna just let the French government tear down his giant metal manhood. You know, his big old metaphorical dick lording over the Paris skyline without a fight. I mean, just imagine the blow to the ego that would create, right? I mean, the dude has like the biggest bragging rights in the country at that point. He can just point to the thing anywhere in the city and be like, oh, that thing, that tower, yeah, that was me. Yeah, no big deal. I kind of did that. That's my massive Parisian penis right there. I wouldn't want the government to remove that ridiculous flex from me either. So in 1898, to try and prevent this massive demolition of his own ego, the tower's creator installed a wireless telegraph antenna atop the tower, basically the predecessor to radio, to try and give the tower some practical purpose other than a stand-in for his minuscule member. And by the time that World War I rolled around, the tower was actually playing a pretty strategic military role, intercepting German broadcasts and giving the French more time to properly surrender, hence its current management by the French telegraph authorities. But, you know, by 1925, the war was long over, and literally everyone in the world besides the Germans were like, man, sheesh, I'm glad that's over. That will definitely, like, literally never happen again, right? The whole world war business, nope. Literally no conceivable way of that going down. No, sir. And they were back to considering tearing the thing down, whether it was still a giant radio-based surrender tower or otherwise. Anyway, semi-interesting historical tangent aside, Victor then went to a French forger and got himself some documents to prove that he was indeed an official certified member of the French Ministry of Posts and Telegraphs, complete with the official seal of the French government. And now he was ready for phase 2. Is that how the French say it? Deux? What is two? My Frenchmen out there, let me know. Victor quickly scrounged up the contact information for 6 of France's top scrap metal dealers and set out official-looking invitations for them all to meet him at the luxurious Hôtel des Crayons, probably is how you say that, in the heart of Paris to discuss a private matter relating to the Eiffel Tower. Now, while Victor intentionally avoided straight out mentioning that the purpose of this meeting was to tear down the tower, it was kind of, you know, well, he was sending the letters to a bunch of scrap metal dealers about the Eiffel Tower. It's kind of obvious what the point is there, you know? So after he has all these scrap dealers in his greasy clutches at the hotel, Victor introduces himself as the Deputy Director General in charge of the tower, before treating the dealers to a luxurious dinner complete with copious amounts of red wine, given that they were all Frenchmen and all. Victor then whipped out his big old polyglot penis, flexing one of those 5 languages that he was fluent in, to deliver to the dealers a speech in perfect French, correct accent and everything, telling them all the hot, juicy gossip and making them feel like special little boys who the actual legit French government trusted so much that they would let them in on this top secret confidential information. In this speech, Victor told the dealers, quote, "Because of engineering faults, costly repairs, and political problems I cannot discuss, the tearing down of the Eiffel Tower has become mandatory." Victor also told the dealers that this information was on an absolutely need-to-know basis, a very hush-hush stuff, as if this info somehow did get out too soon, it could spark a public Parisian outcry. So they couldn't say anything until the details were completely arranged and the deal has already been secured. He also told them that he was the man personally responsible for choosing these dealers to be let in on this exclusive, privileged information because of their reputation as, quote, honest businessmen who the French government could trust to keep their dirty, tower-based secrets. And to really sell the authenticity of his speech, Victor also went on a long diatribe of the common complaints usually levied at the tower, such as it sticking out like a sore thumb against the rest of the city's Gothic architecture, and even dropped hyper-specific information regarding the tower, such as the exact number of rivets holding it together, a number which was correct. I don't know if he counted all of them or whatever, but he knew them. And finally, the most important detail, the exact amount of premium quality iron that these scrap dealers could stand to profit off after the tower's destruction. 7,000 tons worth. And with this remark, the dealers all immediately started getting cartoon-like dollar signs in their eyes, and a loud auga sound could allegedly be heard emanating from the hotel room for miles in every direction. But Victor was a professional at this, okay? Who, as we could see from his immaculate attention to detail with the serial numbers on his bills for the mystical magic money box, was not going to stop convincing these men that he was legit until there was not a shred of doubt left. So, to further this goal, Victor then personally took all of these men to the Eiffel Tower himself, used a fake ID and his godlike riz to con a maintenance worker into taking all of them to the top, and used the amazing views and immaculate vibes of the top of the beautiful tower to be like, you see, boys, wouldn't it be just amazing if this thing didn't exist? And with that, as the sun set on the city of love, Victor Lustig made love to all 6 of those scrap metal dealers right up there at the top of the world. Just kidding. JK. He did fuck them, though. Metaphorically, at least, for sure. As soon as they returned to the hotel room, well, the f***ing commenced. Victor told the dealers that the tower was now up for bids, and they all promptly started frantically scribbling numbers on slips of paper to hand into him in the hopes of securing that sweet, sweet scrap metal. But in reality, this auction was kind of a ruse in and of itself, just for show, shits and gigs, if you will, as the kids say, as Victor had already long picked whom he was going to sell the Eiffel Tower to by that point. And his mark, in this case, came in the form of a particularly desperate and insecure man named André Poisson. You see, André the not-so-giant here was new to Paris, new to the scrap metal game, and all around just kind of a beta male cuck who was desperate to secure a huge deal like this one to rocket his business into the stratosphere of notoriety in the illustrious glitz and glamour-filled world that is the French scrap metal industry. Victor could sense, just from this dude's general vibe, that he really wanted this deal, okay? The almost panic-like enthusiasm in his eyes, the beads of sweat quietly dripping down his forehead, the giant neon sign over his head that read, "Dude, if I don't get this deal, I'm literally gonna and kill myself." It was all really obvious to him, you know. Expert con man, he can smell fear at this point, you know. He can smell the stress sweat coming off of this man's aura. So Victor told the rest of the dealers, "All right, men, I've got your bids in. Go on home and rest up, fall asleep with a cigarette in your mouth, or whatever Frenchmen do. We'll come to a decision soon." But as they were all leaving, Victor came up to André and got right up in his ear, probably licked it a little bit, shoved his thumb in his mouth, and said,
"Not you, André. Not you, my little sparrow. You stay. You stay right here. God damn it, Daddy's not done with you."
I really don't know why I wrote this script like 50 Shades of Grey over here. This guy just kind of gives me the vibe that he's trying to everyone all the time, and they are all very scared but into it a little bit. I don't know. I don't know. I just get a feeling for these things sometimes, you know? So Victor plops this Eric Andre's last name having dude down and tells him something along the lines of, Andre. Can I call you Andre?
Oh, well, I would actually much prefer Monsieur Poisson.
Listen, Andre, I've been doing this French posts and telegraphs thing for a long time, Andre. And let me tell you, Andre, it sucks, dude. Like, I am just not appreciated in the slightest. I mean, here I am securing the largest deal the French government has ever seen late at night. I mean, you know when I got out of bed this morning? 2 a.m. 3 days ago. I've been up for 82 straight hours, Andre, trying to close this deal for this damn government. And you know how much overtime they're paying me? 0. Zilch. Bupkis. Do you know how it feels to be so financially underappreciated? Do you? I mean, if only there was some way in this goddamn unjust world we live in that this horrible wrong could be righted, like some kind of, what's the word I'm looking for here? A bribe? That is a brilliant idea you just came up with totally on your own, Andre. You are a smart guy. Probably got a pretty big cock too. Why don't you? Yeah, all right. So yeah, just give me a bribe. Give it here, Andre.
Show me the money! I love black people!
Now, typically, you would assume that the dude you're doing business with on an incredibly important deal, like the deal of your entire career, asking for such a sketchy thing as this bribe, would be kind of off-putting, right? But you must remember, this is the olden days, okay? And a mid-level peon French government official not asking for a bribe at this time, now that would actually be the sketchy thing, apparently. So, weirdly enough, this actually made Andre way more comfortable with the whole thing going on. He'd already bribed like 6 dudes just that day to eat breakfast and wipe his ass. You know, so he was totally and completely down for all this chicanery. Andre quickly wrote down a very large number on a piece of paper, handed it to Victor. Victor screeched a little bit and then coughed aggressively and said, yeah, no, that's fine. That'll work, I guess. The tower is yours. But I'll need the rest of the bid money tonight. Andre, my sweet little baby peach, fork it over, okay? So Andre gives Victor the bid money on top of the additional bribe. The next day, Victor sprints off to Austria from France, and just like that, he had just made off with 70,000 francs. Today, the equivalent of more than 1.25 million US dollars. And so, Andre now waited to hear back from the French government. And he waited, and he waited. And he waited some more before presumably looking at his watch, sighing, and saying, well, Andre, you've done it again, buddy, before quietly sobbing into his pillow. Now, you might be saying, hey, all right, that's a lot of money, right? Andre definitely like went to the police about this, right? Well, I mean, put yourself in his shoes a little bit here. Like, don't even think about going to the police, but even just going to the French Posts and Telegraphs office, like he thinks he probably should to collect on the deal here. Just imagine that conversation. Hey-o, how's it going, fellas? It's me, Andre Poisson, a man who you are definitely familiar with and certainly not meeting for the first time. So I'll just be picking up the permits for the tower now, please and thank you. The tower? Yes'm. Which tower? Oh, okay, which tower? We're still playing that game. All right, keeping it hush-hush. Okay, it's all right. The deputy director already told me everything. Everything about what? Wow, you guys are really committed to the bit with this secrecy thing, huh? Oh, okay, dude. The tower. The Eiffel Tower. The Eiffel Tower? Yes, sir, Bob. And what exactly is it you want to do with the Eiffel Tower, Monsieur Poisson? Well, destroy it, dude. Obviously, are you punking me right now or something? You want to destroy the Eiffel Tower? Yes, I want to destroy the Eiffel Tower, goddammit. What? Are they hiring the clerks over here at the idiot factory? Did you just get out of a 40-year coma or some shit? I'm gonna tear down the goddamn Eiffel Tower. Full tower. Full tower. Full tower. Full tower.
Should I be concerned about this? About you?
But as hilarious as that situation is, in all likelihood, Poisson never even had this loony bin tier conversation, as he knew it would be just, the guy would never work again in his industry, trying to explain to literally anyone that he had been so goddamn dense as to pay $1.25 million to some dude in a hotel room for the goddamn Eiffel Tower. You know, I mean, like, who would even believe him if he said that? So, in all likelihood, he just ate the enormous loss there and got on with his pitiful, sad life, being the only one who knew the true magnitude of his absolute stupidity.
You are made of stupid.
Victor, on the other hand, was just nutting. Just busting all day long. Every morning, he would go check the newspaper, see that literally nothing about the tower sale was in it, chuckle, chortle, and wheeze over how goddamn hilarious this entire situation was, knowing that this dude would never even say a word about it, before a new idea entered his mind.
I'll fucking do it again.
Okay, that's correct. I mean, he got away with it the first time. Why couldn't he just keep selling the Eiffel Tower? I mean, it was the easiest, most lucrative, and certainly the funniest con that he had ever pulled in his entire life. He was itching to get that fixin' once again. So after just a short while in Vienna checking the papers, Victor headed back to France to give it another go. And Victor had already done the groundwork for all this from last time. You know, he had all the preparation and documents on hand already. So he just picked out some new scrap metal dealers, sent out some letters, went to a different hotel, I assume, climbed the tower with him again, them all real good up there, and picked another slimy, desperate man who then handed over yet another big fat check for the Eiffel Tower. Victor actually managed to sell the Eiffel Tower 2 times, 2 separate times he did this. But in this case, something happened that Victor really was not expecting. You see, this rube, this absolute schlemiel who bought the Eiffel Tower this second time, turns out, well, he literally had no shame in his entire body. As soon as he found out he'd been conned, this guy actually did burst into the French police office and spilled the beans on everything. He didn't care that it was going to make him a laughingstock and probably end his career. This man just wanted justice. And probably his millions of dollars back was probably a pretty substantial part of it. Victor then somehow caught word that he'd actually been reported this time and quickly fled back to America, a land where literally no one cared about some froggy foreigner stupid enough to buy the Eiffel Tower, and where they probably couldn't even understand his accent if he actually came there to tell them about it. Bonjour, Monsieur American Police, please help me. Whoa, slow down, buddy. Spit out that gunk in your throat, man. What the hell are you saying? Monsieur, please, I bought the Eiffel Tower, but it was fake, and he came here to America, and now he is here, and there must be justice. Dude, like, seriously, what the hell are you... Rick! You understand what this guy is saying at all? Dude, I literally thought you were having a stroke over there. Are you talking to somebody? Well, I'm f***ing trying to. The guy sounds like he's trying to gargle pudding or something. So after laying low for a while, Victor decided that he was pretty much in the clear on this con, but he still decided to keep things cool for just a little bit. He wasn't going to do anything as reckless and dangerous as selling the Eiffel Tower. He decided to play it much safer and just con the notoriously violent mobster Al Capone. Yeah, this dude, he's got to be some kind of like adrenaline junkie or something. It's almost like he was trying to figure out the most ridiculous thing that he could do in any given scenario. You see, by this time, it was 1930, 1 year after the stock market took the biggest shit in history, and America got greatly depressed.
Sad boy, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you?
And for the first time in his adult life, Victor ran into a new problem. No one was rich. Literally everyone lost their money in the Great Depression. There was no social caste that walked away from that shit unscathed. This was not 2008, okay? There was no big bank bailout, no sending American tax money to these corporate that caused the recession in the first place so that they could get their severance pay. You know, they did this one right. And Victor couldn't really just walk up to some family starving in the street, barely making ends meet, or a businessman that just lost his entire life savings about to jump off the top of the Empire State Building, being like, hey fellas, you want to buy the Eiffel Tower? Yeah, the economy can be weird sometimes. Like, even the con men like Victor were struggling with no one being rich enough to con. It's quite strange if you think about it. But Victor did know of one man who still had managed to hold on to an inhuman amount of wealth. A man so dangerous that not even a worldwide financial crisis dared to with him. Alphonse Gabriel Capone. Victor quickly got to utilizing his criminal connections in the Chicago underworld to arrange a meeting with Capone himself, and actually just straight up introduced himself to Al Capone as a notorious con man. He presumably led with the whole selling the Eiffel Tower twice thing, now with new reports from France to prove it, and told Capone that he had a surefire scheme that could double Capone's money if he just invested $50,000, the equivalent of around $850,000 today. Capone was impressed with the sheer magnitude and volume of this man's testicles for doing this, and he knew that his own reputation spoke for itself. No one who still wanted to enjoy such luxuries as continuing to be alive would actually be stupid enough to try and rip him off. So he graciously agreed and was excited to receive his return on investment. And Victor was indeed not stupid enough to rip off Capone, at least not directly, as he simply stored Capone's cash in a safe for a couple of months before arranging another meeting with the mobster. In this second meeting, Lustig claimed to Capone that he had actually gotten ripped off, that Victor had lost Capone's 50 grand in a con gone wrong. But Victor, he was such a nice guy and valued his kneecaps so deeply that he decided to pull $50K out of his own personal scam funds to repay Capone and act like this whole thing just never happened. Now, in reality, this was literally just the exact same money that Al Capone had already given him. Victor never got scammed at all. He never even did anything with it other than bring it right back to Al Capone. But Al was so moved by this man's seemingly incredibly generous actions here that he actually just gave Victor $5,000 for just being such a nice fellow, which is almost 100 grand today. At least that's how some sources put it. Other tales talk of Victor basically nagging and pleading on his slutty little knees saying, please, Daddy Capone, Papa needs his fix. Just a little cash to tide me over. I got bills. Al, they're gonna take my teeth. I need those.
Look in your heart. I'm praying to you. Look in your heart. This is not us.
Until Capone was basically just disgusted enough at this man's pleading to just give the guy 5 grand. But either way that this went down, with valor or humiliation, this all too sinisterly simple scheme led to Victor just ripping off the most dangerous, syphilis-ridden, tax-dodging man in America. But this would not be the last time that the two men crossed paths. Now, everyone else in the country was struggling way too much to fall for all of Victor's other schemes. Except, there's nothing like crushing butt-fucking poverty to make the idea of a magical money box more appealing. But, no one had enough money to actually even buy his fake-ass, non-functional money box anymore, and would probably be a lot more, let's say, murderously angry when they found out that it didn't work. So Victor thought, if I can't print money by making people think that they can print money, what if I could print money by printing money? Brilliant. Yes, Victor had kind of pulled a full circle on his original idea here and decided to actually create a real, honest-to-God, magical money box. And naturally, he went to the most magical place on Earth to accomplish this feat, Nebraska. Once there, Victor met up with a pharmacist and chemist duo by the names of William Watts and Tom Shaw, and hired their expertise to start printing the most convincing counterfeit cash that the world had ever seen. Literally, like these things were insane at the time, apparently. Typically, forgers around that era stuck with low denominations to avoid higher scrutiny. But these guys were so cocky and their bills were so genuinely good that Lustig and the game exclusively produced $100 bills. Good old Benjamin Franks, worth a lot more back then than they are today. And they didn't need the whole 6 hours for one $100 bill thing. That was completely fake. They could make as many as they fucking wanted to. Now, at this time in history, the Secret Service of the United States duties did not involve protecting the president or avoiding sloped roofs at Trump rallies like they were made out of lava. Back then, their one and only job was to catch those printing fake bills, as counterfeiting was so ridiculously widespread at this time. Eventually being known as Lustig dollars, the Secret Service called Victor's bills supernotes because they were just that much better than any other fake cash out there at the time, even fooling experts and bank tellers. Even the Secret Service themselves sometimes couldn't tell the difference between his bills and actual US currency. And Victor was printing these amazingly legitimate seeming notes at such a rate that there was a genuine concern that this lone man might crash the already horrific Depression-era economy of the United States simply by printing so many bills. I mean, legitimate governments couldn't even tell what money was real anymore. You know, how are you supposed to control inflation, conduct international trade, or maintain the world's faith in the US dollar when some dude in a basement was basically running a second United States mint? And it might sound like I'm exaggerating a little bit here, but trust me, I am not. A judge involved with the case said that Lustig was, quote, printing these bills like some other government, issuing money in rivalry with the United States Treasury. But at this point currently, Victor's fake currency was about to create a bit of a real emergency. At least for he himself. So remember that whole Texas Sheriff Money Box Scheme story that I talked about like 6 hours ago? Well, it turns out that the crooked cop tracked Victor down in Chicago, like I said, and the payment that he got for the faulty money box that Victor told him he was too stupid to use correctly, well, it turns out that Victor had paid him off with these very same counterfeit Lustig dollars, which gave the Secret Service the first real lead into these so-called supernotes. Playing a very Tom Hanks in Catch Me If You Can-esque role here, stopping Lustig's fraudulent financial f***ery eventually became priority number one for one Peter Rubano, a weary-eyed man who multiple articles made a strangely solid commitment to pointing out was fat as f***. Dude had like 3 chins, apparently. I don't know why that was so integral to the plot here, but the dude is eating like Tony Soprano, I guess. It's gabagool all day long for this gargantuan Goomba. So Victor's ridiculously large operation here continued unimpeded for 5 years, producing millions in fake bills, with Rubano working tirelessly the entire time to track down the counterfeiting count, the so-called smoothest con man ever born. But his final break in the case would come from a wholly unexpected source. Once again, another character from 6 hours ago rears her brothel-running head, Miss Billy May.
Introducing this giant 150-pound rack. Billy has the perfect rack shape. You just place one in the palm of your hand and squeeze
Victor's money box mistress. You see, she found out that he was seeing yet another mistress behind her mistress back, a little mistressception, if you will, and she was just shocked. Just absolutely, completely shocked, I tell you.
Victor, how could you possibly cheat on me? That is so wildly out of character for you. Having a mistress? What a completely unforeseeable turn of events.
My only woman voice is Mickey Mouse. So Billy decided to exact her revenge by spilling all of the beans. Every single one of them that didn't involve her also committing a bunch of crimes with him like she did, and ratted Victor out directly to the Secret Service. Now, a very long pattern of Victor somehow coming across very specific information that's bad for him. Victor came across this very specific bad information, and he split like a log, hoofed it right out of Dodge, and thus a wild and wacky goose chase shortly ensued. And I do mean wacky. I mean that literally. Victor seemed like he was actually having quite a bit of fun with this whole thing. You see, Victor, and I am not making this up, had escaped town with a trunk full of Looney Tunes-esque disguises, which gave him the ability to quickly shapeshift into a rabbi, a priest, a bellhop, or a porter. Although probably his most useful costume was that of a lowly luggage boy, which allowed him to escape hotels whenever police were closing in on him, complete with his own inconspicuous luggage full of money and disguises. But the chase had to come to an end eventually, and on May 10th, 1935, Victor was bamboozled on a New York street corner by a swarm of Secret Service men and hauled into the station. After hours of blistering questioning, Victor openly admitted to knowing of his chemist and pharmacist's role in the operation, but, similar to a little bitch, threw his partners under the bus while denying everything about his own involvement. But there was one particular piece of evidence that really sealed the deal for Victor, a small key that he had concealed on his person. After denying that he knew anything about said key that he just had on his body, you know, everyone, it's a well-known fact, you just have keys, just random keys just lying around. Well, the police eventually discovered said key unlocked a secret compartment at the Times Square subway station loaded with 51 grand in counterfeit bills, complete with the plates that were used to print them. And with this, Victor was fully cooked. His egg timer had gone off. He was burnt. really. They left him in too long. And soon afterward, the Count finally found himself behind bars in Manhattan's Federal Detention Center, a prison widely regarded as completely inescapable. And it would hold on to that title for like a solid 4 months. You see, the day before Victor was set to go to trial, he fashioned a rope out of his bed sheets, cut through his bars with a pair of smuggled butt pliers, and swung out the window, shimmying his way down the wall like a reverse Rapunzel. Now, this escape went down in broad daylight in Manhattan, so there were quite a few onlookers just witnessing this historic prison break. First time anyone has escaped from this place. But Victor had a plan for that too. Always a master of deception, soon after swinging down from his cell window, Victor whipped out a rag from his pockets and started to clean the goddamn windows of the prison, fooling all of the eyewitnesses into believing that he was simply a lowly window janitor, all the while slowly slipping down the wall to freedom before landing at the bottom, literally giving the crowd of onlookers a theatrical bow and then sprinting the hell out of there at Sonic tier levels. When the guards finally caught wind of his escape, they ran to his cell to find only a stripped bed, a barless window, and a poetic note that Victor had left on the pillow containing an excerpt from Les Miserables. The note read, "He allowed himself to be led in a promise. Jean Valjean had his promise, even to a convict, especially to a convict. It may give the convict confidence and guide him on the right path. Law was not made by God, and man can be wrong." And I mean, what a goddamn badass, right? It's kind of cringe, but at the time, not that cringe, just badass. Victor's very badass would continue to evade the pounding of police for about another month until he was spotted by the FBI in Pittsburgh on September 27th, 1935.
There he is, on the monkey bars.
Try to take him alive.
Oh no, not again!
Victor quickly realized that he had been spotted and quickly hopped into a waiting car, which soon sped off. The FBI agents then said, "Oh shit, oh shit, oh," and stepped on their own gas pedal, leading to an intense high-speed chase. The police eventually gained on Victor's car and demanded he pull over, but the driver was on some serious burnout revenge
For the PS2
shit, and he was not slowing down. Seeing no other viable option, the FBI then rammed their own vehicle into Victor's, causing a rip of sparking metal and locking the two vehicles' tires together. With the police car now literally inside of their own car, Victor's driver had no choice but to stop the car and give up his cargo, his conman cargo. After the cops drew their guns and ripped open the rear doors,
"I'm thirsty. I'm just getting a drink."
Freeze!
Had your drink?
Victor's alleged final words as a free man were,
I know.
In November of 35, Victor finally stood trial for producing millions of dollars in counterfeit American currency and was sentenced to 15 years in the most maximum goddamn security prison available, the infamous Alcatraz Island, with an additional 5 years added on for his previous escape. According to one journalist present at the time, a Secret Service agent could be heard telling Victor, "Count, you're the smoothest con man that ever lived." And it was in Alcatraz that Victor and Capone, arrested a year earlier on tax evasion, would cross paths once again, after Victor was thoroughly humiliated by the guards. After arriving on the island, Victor had his cavities searched like he was going to the dentist, with the guards checking every nook and cranny of this man for hidden escape tools and hosing him down with freezing seawater. They then forced him to march naked down the main strip of the prison, known as Broadway, being laughed and shouted at the entire way by the other prisoners, before finally throwing him in his cell and locking the door. Victor, or as he was known in Alcatraz, Robert V. Miller, or more specifically, prisoner number 300, would remain in that cell for the next 12 years, the entire time claiming that he was insufferably ill. Throughout those years, he had made over 1,192 medical requests and filled 507 separate prescriptions. So my dude was on more perks than me. It's hard to do. Now, the guards all assumed that this was all just a ploy from the notorious liar to attempt some sort of crazy escape from this truly inescapable hellhole, but were proved wrong in 1947 when Victor died of terminal pneumonia. The death certificate that Alcatraz had printed for him not only listed his name as Robert V. Miller, but listed his occupation as a, quote, apprentice salesman, which, in my opinion, is a fitting end for a man so wrapped in countless lies of his own creation that he's declared dead with a fake name and a title so simplistically deceptive that you'd almost think it was some sort of sick joke. But even if the certificate had read Victor Lustig, smoothest con man who ever lived, only that last part would be undeniably true, as to this day, despite tireless efforts from historians such as Thomas Andel, a man hailing from Lustig's supposed birthplace of Hostin in Austria, who went through countless records, electoral rolls, and documents salvaged from Nazi book burnings, nothing has ever been discovered to unveil Lustig's original true identity. And Thomas himself eventually concluded that, quote, there is not a scrap of evidence that Lustig was ever born. Hooey doggy. Guys, I moved this month and I got sick like 3 times and it generally just wasn't a good time for me. And that's why this thing took so long. But I'm getting settled down, hopeful for the future now. Next video, swear to God, little baby Jesus, I swear to him, I am wrapping up the CIA iceberg. Okay, folks? Oh boy, am I kind of excited. It's a lot of research, but I love those videos. Please like the video and share it. Help it go around the internet. Last one did not do well. And I need to eat and stuff and maintain a career, so it would just be cool if this one did better. Crossing my little fingies. Oh, I have merch. Also, down in the description, there's a link to my merch. Go check it out, because it's going to be leaving the store soon, okay? It tells you that British people are not real, lets you in on that well-known fact, and YouTube thinks it's racist for that reason, so it won't connect it to my channel to actually show you guys my store. Because of that, I gotta pull the merch down and change it out to something else, so go get yourself some while it's still up there. It's basically gonna be a collector's item after that. And don't forget to check out Aura and keep your online security safe by clicking that link in the description or going to aura.com/necessary information. I'd sure like it if you supported me on Patreon, just like these fine fellows, my God tier patrons. Hunter K, AJW, Cannoli Rose, Mary H, Red D, Bim Wafty, James W, Stephanie D, Cameron J, Operator Metro, Chase B, DeAndre M, The Duke of Earl, Shalom L, Arya and Calcifer, Rena J, and Maxman Beta. And of course, the top tier Barons of Generosity, my 20 buckaroos. Bucks 1X Champs, Dark DeChesnia, Toto Mon, Lando C, Terry T, Sullivan L, Snagowski, Trent S, Blarg, Fuzzy Viper Shark, Al the Pal, Adam K, Harabutica, and Rare Bees. As always, let me know what you're doing while you watch this video. What's going on? Are you scamming somebody? You typing out some like Nigerian prince emails to grandmas everywhere? Let me know. I love ya. I'll see you next time. And click on this video right here. There's a video on screen. That's how it works. Click on it. Watch it. Please. I need money right now. I need money really badly. Please watch the video. I'm not even going to cap it to you. Please watch it. Buy my merch. Buy my merch and subscribe to the Patreon. I need money. I just moved. I have no money. Please help.